Can you give me an example of one MAGA Republican that has been consistent about doing something about all the gun violence in this country?
Um,
Anything? Have they proposed?
me.
Okay, but
I
you're
can only
a
speak for
lawmaker.
myself.
I appreciate you doing that, but can you name me a lawmaker that is on the right that don't have their AR-15 pins or brag about their A+ rating from the NRA, that they actually want to work with Democrats and say, hey, we need to do something about all the gun violence in this
Yeah,
country?
but maybe they disagree with the Democrats' approach. Maybe the Democrats disagree so strongly with them
Barack
that
Obama, after the Sandy Hook, tried to do anything and everything he could to pass anything into law.
So what do you
Republicans,
think we should do
I
for
think
gun
I'm glad,
violence?
I'm glad you asked, and then I'll
Okay.
ask you the same question. I can name about 5 or 6 different things, and I'm glad you asked
Sure.
that question, by the way, because I think there's too many people out there that don't ask that question.
Okay.
I think first of all, the age should be 18 to 21. I'm very uncomfortable with an 18-year-old walking into a gun store buying thousands of rounds of ammunition.
Yep.
At number 2, I think there should be a mandatory 2-hour class. Now, I understand if you drive a car, it's a privilege. It's not a right. I get that. But when you get into a vehicle, we want people to drive safely, right? That's why you have an instructor. They check your health. They check your eyesight. Give me a 2-hour class on the basics: how to hold a gun, how to store a gun, how to shoot a gun. That's it. I think you should have to re-register your gun, just like you have to re-register a car. I also am a firm believer in red flag laws. Now, they're very inconsistent. I'm not saying if you don't like your neighbor, you should be allowed to call the police and say, hey, he threatened me, and then they take that person's away. No, that's not fair. It should be a case-by-case basis. In some states, a husband could leave his wife a message, God forbid, saying, I'm going to kill you tonight. That husband would probably be arrested for a threat, but then the next day, in some states, not all, that person would have the right to buy a gun until he sees his day in court. I think red flags need to be stronger. And then there is the weapons of war, as I would call them. And without getting into the weeds on which weapons are weapons of war or not, I know.
Of course, the problem here with this argument is obvious. Can anybody see the issue with his argument here? The main issue that you can just point out right away on Ben Shapiro here? Nope, it's not unconstitutional. You don't even need to make the constitutional argument. What Brian Shapiro said here was that you could, that he wants to see these things strengthened because you could, within some perception, make a threat to like your wife, and then the next day you get out and you still have access to your. The problem is what about accusations? So you could just make an accusation that there was a threat with zero proof. And in Brian's world, that would bar you from having access to your firearms. Well, obviously, that would be a very big problem to bar people access from things they have rights to perceptually under the Constitution, if it is the case that they can simply make an accusation without any proof whatsoever. That's the problem. Yeah, false allegations, exactly.
Although there's an assault weapons ban put forth in the early 80s that was fizzled out by Republicans. Violence went way down. You could look at the statistics.
Yeah, and then Clinton got one passed, and then Columbine happened during it.
In the early 80s. Now, I'm not saying, Warren, give me all those things. All I'm simply saying is, give me 1 or 2 of those things. It won't end all the violence in this country.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Sure.
What is an assault weapon?
Again, going into the weeds of what an assault weapon is. Here's the way.
That's not going into the weeds. That's asking for specifics.
Way I would define it. Many of these that are used, like the that were used in Las Vegas, the that were used in Columbine, the that were used in the Buffalo, the that was used.
Columbine happened during an assault weapons ban. If I remember correctly, somebody fact checked me on that, but I think that that's accurate. It happened during an assault weapons ban. And they were using pretty low-tech, unsophisticated weapons and some other things.
Used in the Texas El Paso, there are certain weapons that are built for one reason and one reason only: not to defend yourself, to as many bullets as possible in a short period of time to kill as many people. Now, again, we can get into the weeds on what exactly those weapons are, but back when our forefathers were putting the Constitution together,
that's really important, that distinction.
So if you don't think there should be an assault weapons ban, let's just assume that that's your take. Give me some solutions that you, and let's forget about the assault weapons ban for a moment.
First, we'd have to figure out what an assault weapon is.
I understand your point. Let's just say, okay, let's forget about the assault weapons ban for a moment, that we disagree on that. What are some things that you think we should do? Because I named you like
Andrew, I've watched a lot of your debates. I work in healthcare and have been asking, I'm sorry, epistemologicalizing questions to my colleagues' worldviews. Two of them will be coming to Divine Liturgy this month. All this to say, thank you, sir. No problem. They had semi-automatic Tech 9 and with pipe bombs. Well, the Tech 9 is considered,
5 or 6 things that you think would make this country
and it was semi-automatic, if I remember correctly.
be safer when it comes to.
Sure, but it's still difficult. I'll do my. I can answer. I'll do my best to answer that, given that we don't know what an assault weapon is, though. But so we'll just say in general then. So because we can't define what an assault weapon is, I don't think banning assault weapons is a reasonable one. We'll take that off the table. I agree with you about the class. So in Massachusetts, I recently just went through this whole process. You have to, for me to get a hunting rifle, any kind of rifle, I have to get an LTC, license to carry, which takes 6 months on average in Massachusetts. That's to even get a hunting rifle. You have to go to a class. You have to go to the police department, fill out the application. You have to get 3 references. Depending on the town, this can change. They might require a letter.
That's
And my question is, what do you mean by the reference? Who's a good reference for me to be able to get a? And what if you don't like my references? Can you revoke my ability to? I thought this was a constitutional right. There's some very strange things being done in this area, though. The problem with this model is that when you say to even get a hunting rifle, you have to go.
Warren is not being pedantic. I'm actually tired of the low IQ people thinking that because you ask people to tell you what it is that they're referencing so that you don't get a proprietary definition of a thing, or so that you can kind of walk through the logic of it with them, that's being pedantic. He asked this what an assault weapons was, what is it? And he couldn't answer. That's not being a pedant. That's being specific.
Through this. It's the most frustrating thing I have ever done bureaucratically, like any process. It's the
Okay, Warren,
hardest
I
thing I've
hear
ever
your
done.
frustrations. I hear your frustrations, but what I want to know is what solutions do you have that you think might work?
Okay, there are parts of this that should be implemented across states because I've done the same thing in North Carolina where you go in, you can buy a gun that day. I disagree with that. So I'm trying to lay this out for a reason. You would take, I like the classroom portion. I agree with you on that. So but we get rid of the 6 month bureaucratic nightmare though.
Mhm.
And we get rid of saying to get a hunting rifle, you have to go through this nightmare. Because what does that do? Now, every single person who does complete this process
Mhm.
now has the legal ability to carry a concealed firearm. What if you just want to hunt? What does that do? You're going to have more people able who you might not want to have that go through that process now carrying concealed if they want to, rather than distinction it out. So
Mhm.
North Carolina, because every state does this, it's so infuriating. North Carolina, I can go and buy the gun, but yes, I agree with you. You should have to take the class. It takes a day.
So I disagree here. I would say that I would move towards what I would call a federal right to carry law. I'd do a federal right to carry law and say, hey, well, I mean, if this is possible, if you have a federal permit, right, that you can carry in all 50 states, period. And I'd make the permit process very easy. Denial would have to be based around significant proofs. That's how I would do it. I think that you should have a right to carry in any state you want anyway. I think that the idea of constitutional carry is stupid. Every place should be a constitutional carry. Every place should be. The Second Amendment is pretty specific about it. And so are our founders. A well regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Right? I think all states should have some kind of constitutional carry. All of them should. People freaking out in the chat. Look, you can be mad about the take all you want, but the problem is that you have states right now. You could be driving through one state and just moving your across state lines to your new home, and suddenly, what happens to you? You could be arrested and things like that just for transporting them through a state where they're banned. That's that shouldn't be allowed. Here, that shouldn't be allowed. Period. ridiculous. Everybody should have a right to carry in every state that they're in, period. Always. It's a right.
We're very frustrated that it takes. How about the people that are trying to get legalized, citizenship in this country that have to wait like 15 years?
Oh, it's probably infuriating.
Okay, I'm glad we agree on that. Go ahead.
Bureaucracy is a nightmare. It's awful. It's one of the reasons I want limited government and not more of it.
Which
One of
party
the
is
reasons
trying?
I did vote for Trump.
Which party is trying to make it more difficult?
A bad windstorm outside, guys. Sorry about that. Just click refresh. You should be all right.
Difficult for people to
Well,
be natural.
traditionally, conservatives tend to believe in less government, and Democrats tend to believe in more government.
Democrats have been always trying to make it easier for people to get their citizenship in this country. You know that. Republicans are making it more difficult for people to become naturalized citizens.
I get your point.
Okay,
I
go
get
ahead.
your point there. But so back
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
oh, as far as police, so being in a school, having gone through the school training and what they do with that, I think we should have, and we had an armed officer in the school most of the time. I think we should
Yes.
have one in every school. That seems to be like the most immediate response we can provide,
don't have
given
a
that we
problem.
cannot define
Don't
what an
have-
assault weapon is.
Warren, I don't disagree with you on that, but it certainly didn't help in Uvalde when you had about 25 people with and they were cowards. But I don't have a problem
I
with what you're
agree.
saying about having armed.
That's a great example, though, man. Because, like, yeah, you're gonna, in the same way you use that example of the corrupt police department being evidence of systemic racism, you're gonna have incompetent departments, but that's not, most people would not respond in that way, though.
I think there's a difference when you have about 20 officers with that are acting as cowards while children are getting than someone who behaves or acts a certain way just for the basis on someone's skin, which is what I'm appealing to. I don't.
There's differences. I
Yeah,
wasn't trying
yeah.
to equate
I
them.
think are there a group of people in this country, a small percentage of police officers that are cowards? Absolutely. There's also a group of people in this country that treat others differently because of the color of their skin. If you want to
The
call
The
systemic
most
cowards,
important thing from this little conversation right here is it's been the assault weapon portion of it. Honestly, you really got to figure that out, and it's got to be.
I have my
So
opinions.
what is it?
I have my opinions of it, but what I didn't hear, I guess this is what's frustrating.
Okay.
What I didn't hear is any real solutions that you have. You said you complained about it took you 6 months to hunt. I didn't hear in your explanation any real issue things that you think would help other than making sure that every school has an armed security guard. What about all the mass when it comes to concerts? When it comes to
I laid out, my response was very similar. It's not the same to yours, but in the same way you tried to answer it, I did. You were talking about the waiting period of the training that's required.
Donald Trump's a fascist. So turn your in to the fascist government. That's stupid. Donald Trump's a fascist. Now turn your into the fascists. That always worked out well.
I laid out my formula for it, given what I've experienced with it. And then the best solution specifically for schools is an armed guard. But the most important part of this entire conversation is that you all are calling for an assault weapons ban, and you can't tell me what an assault weapon is.
No, I think there are certain AR-15 assault weapons, and there are certain other types of weapons that can at a higher volume than certain other weapons. For example, like your everyday normal pistol that some police officers use.
Hey, hang on a second. How? You understand how this works, right? So if my pistol fires the exact same as my AR-15.
There are certain weapons, as you know, higher capacity magazine weapons that shoot at a higher rapid force than other certain weapons.
A higher rapid force, ladies and gentlemen. Damn you and your higher rapid force.
That are used.
What does that mean, rapid force?
Okay, well, there are certain weapons that are designed to shoot more bullets at a faster rate than certain other weapons out there.
No. Can we just clarify? This is really important. We need to clarify this. I think you're talking about automatic weapons, which are not legal. They're already banned.
No, that's not the case. They're just permit used. That's all. And the other thing is that semi-automatic is just made up nonsense. It's self-loading is the correct. All of these are automatic. Your semi-automatic automatically works. It's an automatic, just usually referenced as being self-loading. Semi-automatic is like a layman's term for the thing, but it's an automatic still. I don't know This is this talking point's a bad one, I think, ultimately. I think that what Warren is saying here in the spirit of it is correct. He's saying, look, um, the idea here is that you're talking about semi-automatic, uh, semi-automatic rifles. You're not talking about, what he would consider a fully automatic rifle, right?
You're
What
thinking of like
weapons?
it goes. Brrrr. So so let me get it on camera. Semi-auto, which is what we're talking about. All these, they're going to fire as fast as I can do this. That's the limitation on all of these firearms we're talking about. Do you understand that?
I do understand that.
It's not like this can allow me to do this
I,
faster. Do you, that's
I do
important.
understand. There are
Because that's
certain
your
things.
distinction. You're saying that's what's going
I,
to determine this. And I'm
I,
saying that
I,
doesn't exist.
I always like it when liberals bring up semi-automatic, and then they say, you gotta eliminate where every pull of the trigger, it fires a bullet. And I'm like, you mean like a revolver? No, not a revolver. I'm like, I'm pretty sure double action revolvers work just like that. Every time you pull the trigger, it goes bang.